Hello fellow Runeterrans! In this video I want to dive into what it would take to save the MMO genre. Will Riot Games redeem the lost and scattered genre with one game to rule them all? Or will the player base of the MMO genre keep on continuing to be divided by tribalism? Today I want to find out. If you already know, drop a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. This would help the channel a lot. No further ado, let's see how Riot Games can redeem the massive multiplayer online gaming genre. An MMO is and probably will always be a complex game to make. There are key structures and systems that need to work great as a separate organism, and at the same time they need to be designed that there is a synergy to let the systems work flawlessly together as one great game. Some days ago I asked you what pillar of MMO design is important for you, if you had to choose one. And there were some interesting and balanced results in my opinion. We will go over 5 key structures or designs we can almost see in every MMORPG. Those key structures are progression, economy, combat, narrative and setting, and last but not least, multiplayer experience. Let's start with the first pillar, for some players the most important aspect of the game, which is progression. Progression systems are created to make your unique character give a feeling of leveling up or progressing in the world they are interacting with. This is, in my opinion, the most difficult system to get right, because it can be linked to the world that our characters interact with. The narrative of the game itself, the multiplayer aspect of the game, and at last the economy. A perfect progression system is not based on a hierarchic structure, but leans more to a synergetic node of a complex network. Each aspect of the game has to fit in the synergy as an equal force. If there is an unbalance in progression, it can ruin the experience. A good progression system also incorporates a balance between time, difficulty, and rewards. If it takes too much time to get rewarded, the player will get bored and demotivated. If the player finds the tasks too easy to complete, the reward will not feel as rewarding, and so not worthy of your time investment. And last but not least, if the player gets rewarded all the time, the rewards feel empty and stale. So a good balance between time consumption, difficulty, and rewards plays a vital part in a progression system. If you link that with a compelling narrative story, satisfying combat, and a great co-op experience that is all rooted in the world we interact with, progression will feel satisfying and meaningful. For example, I think Guild Wars 2 did a great job in abandoning the leveling system and replacing it with a mastery system. This system is designed so that the player unlocks different ways of interacting with the world. The more mastery points you collect on the map, the more ways you unlock to access different ways of exploring different parts of the map. So there is a reason to explore the world and a reason to level up, which makes it a very good progression system that is rooted in the world. Even Dragonflights now incorporated this idea. And I think this is a very good starting point for the Riot MMO. Okay, next up we have a system that got a bit stale over the years. Let's talk about economy. Almost in every MMO we see the same auction houses and trading hubs. And the way we trade has become so automatic that I think Riot can make an innovation here. Because I feel economy is a very important factor in an MMO. This is a classic structure of the auction houses we see in many MMOs and even real-world trading platforms. But could there be an innovative way of content in this aspect of the game? We see games as Diablo 3 and Black Desert Online trying to innovate in the past with implementing real-world money, but clearly they did fail, so they removed it entirely from the game. Attempts at innovation aside, there is room left to explore and innovate in this way. It would be interesting to see Riot's MMO taking this to the next level, perhaps an NPC economy could be initially placed into an MMORPG, which players forced to work their way into it before competing with each other, and the games already establish big businesses to earn a reputation and profit. There are still many opportunities to create something innovative and exciting with game economies. If you know an MMO that has different approaches to their economy, please let me know in the comment section below. Next up, I want to talk about combat. Combat has been a hot topic in the MMO community for more than a decade, and in my experience there is a division in preferred combat styles. Some players really like the tap targeting combat style, and some others like more the action combat style. And then we have also the hybrid combat system. To end the endless discussion, I want to say just one thing. I think it doesn't really matter which style of combat Riot will implement, because I think Riot is more than capable of mastering the art of a satisfying combat experience, no matter what style they implement. If combat feels responsive, fast-paced, impactful, and has a low entry barrier with a high skill ceiling, they can implement whatever style they would prefer. It just has to feel right. The animations, the sounds, the way you move, get in and out of combat, all those little details play a major role in how satisfying the combat experience is. With League of Legends, Project L, and Valorant under their belt, I think combat in the MMO will be again very polished. And so for me personally, it doesn't matter which style of combat the developers implement. Okay, let's move on to the next top 2 pillars you voted on MMO design: narrative and setting. As we know, story and a clear narrative in MMOs has become more popular through the years. We see Final Fantasy XIV thrive on storytelling. We see WoW's narrative change over the years into a greater story throughout all the expansions. But this was not always like this. In the beginning of the MMO genre, there was not such a big emphasis on story development. We got a world, and that world had some stories, but there wasn't a big plot or narrative conclusion. It was still a world filled with danger and obstacles to overcome. Nowadays, every MMO feels almost like an action-adventure game, where there's a certain narrative to follow. Once the greater narrative has been completed, you could say you completed the game. Of course, it is an MMO. There is no real completion to it. But in a way, developers pushed strong directional narratives that gave a certain feeling of, oh, okay, now the game is over. And I think World of Warcraft did this the best. In the early days, there was not one big narrative, but more little side stories inside the big open world. It was the world itself that was the story. There was no main hero as the player, but a bunch of losers grouping together to tackle those little stories. Nowadays, it feels like there is only one direction with one great massive story. In this way, it feels more like the little stories have been removed, and so the details of the world we interact with have been forgotten. The worlds we interact with become empty and meaningless. So in my humble opinion, it is the little stories that make a great narrative. Let's talk about Riot Games. The League universe has been updated over the past decade. There are, as a rough estimate, over 300 stories made for each champion, 160 biographies, and roughly 160 color stories. No greater plot arcs included, for example the stories of the Watchers, the Void, or the Darkin. Even Legends of Runeterra has many little stories told throughout the card descriptions and artwork. I think Riot created the perfect starting point to color this massive world with hundreds, even thousands of little stories that connect to greater plot points. I'm sure to say that Riot will save the genre in narrative and setting. It's one of the most known IPs nowadays, and even players that don't play League of Legends know a part of the League universe. Also, thanks to Arcane, there is a huge attraction from non-gamers. And Arcane was a great success. Just don't make any ruination-like events anymore, Riot, please. Okay, last but not least, what's a great massive multiplayer online game without multiplayer? If narrative and story is a branch, then multiplayer experience is the trunk of the MMO genre. It's even in the name of the genre itself. And I think the biggest issue nowadays in all MMOs, almost all MMOs, don't put any emphasis on multiplayer experience. And in my opinion, that's a huge problem plaguing the genre for more than a decade. Do you see empty worlds? Are you on your own? Or you don't feel like playing with others? Well, let me tell you a secret. It's all by design. Over the years, MMOs shifted towards the solo experience. For example, The Elder Scrolls Online is playable entirely on your own. I feel like MMOs back in the day were more focused on creating content to go out in the world all together as a group of players. It didn't matter who those players were. MMOs were designed in a way that it was in your advantage to level up together and, very important detail, to stay together. In this way, it was easier to form guilds and group of friends, all while playing the game itself. It was not only a game, it was more of a social hub. Of course, with the rise of social media and Discord, we can have access to those social hubs while playing other games, and that's fine. But for me, to truly redeem the MMO genre, Riot will need to enhance the social experience in their MMO. And how? Just make the world a dangerous place to visit. Make it like we can't solo the content we encounter. Make it so difficult that going out in the world feels dangerous and exciting again. I want to feel almost forced to group up and to tackle a quest boss. I want to feel forced to kite mobs while the other player is attacking the boss. I think this is the only way to enhance and even force the social experience back into the genre. Some players will disagree with me, and that's totally fine. There are action-adventure games especially created to play solo. Maybe you can play those games. If we all want a great MMO, social experience should be at the front of the cover. But again, that's just my opinion. If you disagree or you would like to add some ways to innovate that maybe one day could save the MMO genre, I would love to read your ideas and opinions below. If you liked this video, I am trying to upload at least one video a week. Don't forget to like and subscribe to push the video into the algorithm so more like-minded players can enjoy my videos. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful new year.